Hi, I'm Pat, and I'm the father of an HLHS kiddo named Micah, who we named our organization after the Micah Mason Foundation. And this is a review of HLHS community webinars. Today's review is about the Hart University's 6th Global Ventricle Learning Series webinar, sponsored by npc-qic. If you want to know more about npc-qic, you can head over to one of our previous videos where I cover who they are and what they do. Their sponsorship with the Hart University was for 6 webinars in what they call the Global Single Ventricle Learning Series, since that's the focus of npc-qic is single ventricle stuff. So Hart University is a global pediatric cardiology learning space. So there were 3 presentations in the webinar. The first was concerning npc-qic history. So if you didn't know much about where npc-qic came from, that's primarily what the first presentation provided. So in 2006, there was no collaborative improvement efforts in pediatric cardiology, and around that time, the licensing organizations for practitioners, medical practitioners, decided that there needed to be learning. There needed to be learning in a quality improvement environment as part of the yearly continuing education in order to keep your license valid. That's something that's true of most licensing organizations. For instance, I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of Texas, and I have to do continuing education every year to keep my license current. And so this was true. This has been true of medical practitioners for a long time. There was a new piece of it added that basically said that some of your learning has to be in the quality improvement space. Several things generated out of that. One of them was 2009 was the first learning session on the interstage period. So it was kind of the birth of npc-qic, because the QIC stands for Quality Improvement Collaborative, NBC National Pediatric Cardiology. So that's their focus, is quality improvement in the pediatric cardiology space. And what they went after was the interstage period, which is that time between the first surgery, which is the Norwood, and the second surgery, which is the Glenn, for HLHS patients. In 2006, the mortality rate during the interstage period was somewhere between 15 and 20%, and growth failure was at about a 30% rate. Over the years, I guess it's a couple decades, well, yeah, almost 2 decades now. But now, mortality rate in the interstage period is roughly 5%, and growth failure is less than 10%. So npc-qic has done some good work, and they were laser focused in that time frame. They partnered with Sisters by Heart, and in that partnership, it was sort of an important change in sort of how things were done. And that was moving from a place where it was all medical practitioners, nurses and doctors and anesthesiologists and whatnot, and moving into a space where we were partnering with the parents of the patients, because we're talking about interstage period. So, these aren't teens or adults, these are babies. And so it went from being just a quality improvement within the halls of medical professionals to being a quality improvement with credence to the voice of the parents and what they were seeing with their children. This led into phase 2 of npc-qic, which basically they expanded their scope. So they went from just the interstage period to survival to first birthday, and they really moved into having a more parent involvement. One of the big pieces of that we saw and we benefited from was a movement towards eating by your first birthday, because this was an issue that wasn't really, I'm going to say, on the radar of most medical professionals, especially with our kids, but it's such a huge, huge life changer for the parents. It's top of mind. I remember when our son was on had his G button, and he was on feeds, and he was on feeds I think it was every 3 hours for half an hour, or every 2 hours for half an hour, every hour and a half for half an hour, and then would feed all night. And so I remember, it was like 8 to 9 months or a year where I didn't sleep more than like a couple hours at a time, because I kept having to get up and change the feed bag and make sure it was still plugged in and make sure I wasn't feeding the bed, and even then, like, everything revolved around tube feeding my kid, because you get a half an hour, you have to prep it, and then you have an hour you feed it, and then you get that half an hour where you're not feeding and you're not prepping. And so that it was a big one for us parents, but not necessarily for the medical folks, because they weren't seeing it. And so that became a huge piece of npc-qic was eating by your first birthday. So you have the picture with the kid eating the cake, right? And so that was I think one of the big successes of bringing the parents involved. It showed that, yeah, you really did need the parents involved, because otherwise you were going to miss some stuff. So that was the first presentation. The second presentation was about the Fontan Outcomes Network. And so you have npc-qic, which is focused on the kind of high intensity surgical periods, the interstage, when there's a lot of medical intervention going on with the kiddos. And then once they get the Fontan, they're kind of like set in the wild, right? And that's not exactly quite how it should be. The Fontan Outcomes Network is formed out of a recognition that there is a better way, that there are good ways and not so good ways to treat Fontan patients, to monitor Fontan patients, to collect data, to figure out what that data means, to basically do quality improvement in the Fontan space now that these children are in their teens and adulthood, and how to use the data from that to drive better care for the kids who are coming through now. And so that's the Fontan Outcomes Network. So that's formed. It's in a data gathering mode. So that's primarily what it's doing, is it's gathering data. And the goal is to improve quality of life and longevity for Fontan patients. So there's no guarantee that a Fontan patient is going to go into Fontan failure, but it seems like at some point it's highly, highly likely. And so the goal of the Fontan Outcomes Network is to improve the quality of life while it's not even a child, while a teen or an adult has Fontan circulation, and to improve the longevity, to keep the Fontan from going into failure mode as long as we possibly can get there. And maybe that ends up being the final solution, but maybe it gets us to the next thing. But the goal is better quality of life and longevity. So FON worked with, npc-qic and Fontan Outcomes Network. Generic model is called co-production. So you engagement to partnership to co-production. And so you have engagement, which is the medical community kind of coming together and engaging the problem, to a partnership, which is the various medical establishments going, okay, we realize we don't have enough of these kids to really silo this, and we need to all talk together. To co-production, where you bring the parents in. And now with the Fontan Outcome Network is moving towards is what they call tri-production, which is where you bring the patient in, because now that these patients are older and they're teens and they're adults, they are teens and adults, and they have opinions, and they know what has worked for them and what hasn't worked for them. Much like the parents, they know what it's like, to live with their condition. And so bringing them into figuring out the solution is sort of the next step. And so that's what the Fontan Outcome Network is really gearing towards, is bringing the patients in. And so if you're a patient of HLHS, highly recommend reaching out to the Fontan Outcomes Network to see how you can help, because it's there for you. And so that's their kind of two pillars: agency, which is bringing patients into the conversation, and advocacy, which is parents and patients can say things that doctors can't. So there's a lot of times and spaces where doctors are sort of, I'm not going to say hamstrung, but they're hamstrung by not necessarily rules and regs, but just the way things are done and the way things are talked about, and risks they're willing to take or risks they're not willing to take, just because of living in a professional environment. Whereas a parent and patient, they're not limited to that kind of thing, and so they can come in and say things that doctors and nurses can't say, and doctors may be thinking those things, but maybe they can't say them out loud because of those strictures. So advocacy is a very important piece of being a patient or a parent that's involved with these organizations, because not only do you bring to the table a completely different view, but you also have the ability to speak where a doctor might not have the ability to speak. And then you can also cheerlead and push doctors. And so that's, everybody likes to hear that their work is important and it's going well, and that includes even doctors and nurses. And so you can help them get up in the morning. And, that's one of the big things in life, right? Why am I getting out of bed? What am I getting up to do? And so if you can tell a doctor, hey, by doing this is going to change my life, or you're helping to change my life, or I need your help, that gives them reason to keep doing what they're doing. So very important if you are an HLHS patient, that with Fontan circulation, that you consider getting involved in the Fontan Outcomes Network. The last presentation was a generalized how learning networks have changed medicine, and the concept of a learning network like npc-qic or Fontan, and there's the PAC3, there's several of them out there, but the idea is that it's not a single medical institution making all decisions and doing things alone. I think it's all teach, all learn is one of the slogans. And the reality is, it's the only way to move forward with rare diseases like HLHS, because you just don't have the patient load at any one hospital to do studies, to do research, to do quality improvement initiatives, because you don't have enough patients. And so getting everybody together, getting everybody to share data, getting everybody to work together, to listen to each other, to do things better with each other is really the only path forward for rare diseases. And honestly, it's the path forward for all medicine. Eventually, hopefully, the day of siloed, prideful doctorism will go away. Humans are humans, so it's hard to say the pride will go away. But, ultimately, I know as parents and as patients, what we care about is, as parents, it's our children, living full, healthy, happy lives. And as patients, it's living a full, healthy, and happy life. And I could give, no cares at all if that's because the hospital I go to came up with the solution, or some other hospital, 4 countries away came up with the solution. I don't care. What I care about is my kid living a happy, healthy life. And so that's why I really believe in the collaborative efforts, and why they believe in the collaborative efforts, and because they've shown that they work, right? Dropping mortality rate by 15% is pretty amazing in 15 years. So they work, and medical network collaboratives, and so that was just the general gist of that webinar. It was the Hart University's 6th webinar in the Global Single Ventricle Learning Series, which is the last one, at least for the time being. I suspect we will have more later, but that was the general gist. So npc-qic's history, the movement of the Fontan Outcomes Network, and from just doctors and patients or doctors and parents working together, to doctors, parents, and patients working together, and then a general overview of why collaborative learning is a good thing. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was informative, and If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section down below. And thanks for watching. And remember, we're all in this together. Hey everybody, thanks for watching our video. We appreciate the support, and I hope it was informative. As you may or may not know, the Micah Mason Foundation has formed a partnership with the Children's Heart Foundation to create a named fund in Micah's name. It's the Micah Mason Research Fund, and the goal is to raise $100,000 in order to fund a research project that will hopefully go on to save Micah's life and the lives of other children who have hypoplastic left heart syndrome. Right now, we've got a long way to go to 100K, so I want to ask you if you would be interested in donating to the Micah Mason Research Fund. We'd appreciate your donation, and all funds go to the research and go to help save our children. So if you can spare even $2 to $3, anything would help. $20, $30, $10,000. If you happen to have that. If you do happen to have that, that'd be excellent. But even $5 helps. And on top of that, right now we do have a matching donor, so anything you give will be doubled. And we really appreciate your support and your help. And if you want to donate, go to www.micahmasonfoundation.org and click on the donate link. That'll take you to a way to donate via PayPal and our address if you'd like to send us a check. The alternate way, if you want to donate directly to the Micah Mason Research Fund via the Children's Heart Foundation, go to micahmasonfoundation.org and click on Partners, and there's a link there to give directly to the fund via credit card. We thank you for your support. Check out our other videos, and remember, we're all in this together.